All right, everybody, welcome to the redo of the video for Psych 101 32A's midterm for fall of 2018. So here's a little bit of background of why I'm doing this. Unfortunately, I did the recording during class when we were doing the review, and I said that I was going to post it up, and the video actually went very well. I mean, it was a beautiful video when you look at it, but unfortunately, for some reason, the microphone part of the camera did not pick up. So unfortunately, I had a great video for you guys, but no audio, which is incredibly boring and darn near worthless for a review. And then I accidentally sent out the review from my other Psych 101 class. I give slightly different midterms to each class. And unfortunately, some of you actually got that and looked through it and were a little bit confused because it's not the right review. So here is my kind of pseudo fix for that. I'm going to quickly go through and do the same thing with audio for the review for those of you that haven't taken the exam yet. This shouldn't really impact people too much because I'm not necessarily going to do anything different than what we've already done, but for some of you, you want to be able to look at this one more time, and I have no problem with that whatsoever. So without further interruptions, let's go ahead and get started on the review. So I'm going to do the exact same thing I did before. I'm going to go through a majority of these questions and make sure that you understand what they're supposed to be. And unfortunately, I can't say if you have any questions, please let me know, because that would be very awkward because nobody else is here. So let's go ahead and get started on these. So number one, the axon is a blank. So what is the part of the axon that is part of the neuron? Number two, snack manufacturer finds that it must increase the salt content of its chips by 8% so that people will notice that the chips are saltier. If you remember, we talked about this in sensation perception. The term that I use during lecture is slightly different than the term that is used here. I use the terms absolute threshold and just noticeable difference. You should be able to figure out from there that just noticeable difference and just noticeable difference and difference threshold are the same thing. So if you think it's C, but you're not sure because I used a different term, this is the same term, okay? Compare your forearm, your hand, and your fingers to a neuron, okay? So fingers, hand, forearm, and if I had another hand coming out here, that would be what a neuron kind of looks like. And so your dendrites, remember dendrites are the things that first receive information. What is being represented there, or what part of your arm and hand actually represent the dendrites? Number four, dreams are most often reported in what sleep period? In Pavlov's study, the US was blank, the NS was blank, and the CS was blank. And remember, this is the way that this all works, and hopefully you reviewed this a little bit. The neutral stimulus is paired with the unconditioned stimulus that brings about an unconditioned response. That neutral stimulus, by being paired, the neutral stimulus becomes something, and from there you should be able to piece these things together. Who is credited for the beginning of classical conditioning? And don't overthink this. There's two answers here that are technically. There's one answer that is correct, there's one answer that is right, and there's two that are incorrect. I'm going to tell you, Watson is the right but not correct answer. And I'm sorry if that sounds confusing, but Watson did come up with a lot of classical conditioning, but we actually attribute the foundation of classical conditioning to someone else. It's noisy. How can you stand it? But you don't even notice it. So what's happening in this situation? Okay. Went too far. Number 8, Michael J. Fox, Muhammad Ali, people who have developed Parkinson's disease. This is because of a deficiency of which neurotransmitter? Number 9, everybody hated these on the SATs or ACTs or back in high school. You don't get away from them that easy. Perceiving information is to accessing information as blank is to blank. Psychologists refer to one's awareness, one's thoughts, and the environment to And if you're a little bit sleepy right now, might be in an altered state of blank. So that's a little bit of a hint. Psychology is defined as, remember, as much as we love our dogs and our cats and our fish, whatever, as a psychologist, I don't care about them from a professional standpoint. So I get it that they're important in our lives, but as psychologists, we are focused on one specific group of beings, and dogs, cats don't fall into it. Number 12, regarding sensation perception, which is true. I'm not going to read all these, but should be able to figure that out. Skinner is known for the study of, just look in your textbook on this one, you should be 50-50, hopefully. You should be able to get rid of two of them right off the bat. Slot machines are to vending machines as blank reinforcement is to blank reinforcement. Now remember, on this question, we are not talking about Ivy Tech vending machines. We are talking about real good vending machines that always give you what you pay for. Okay, so a well-working slot machine, a well-working vending machine, what's going on there? Sudden sleep attacks are characteristic of what kind of sleep disorder? 9/11, Princess Di, Sandy Hook Massacre, the Florida shooting, Space Shuttle Challenger. These are all vivid memories that are specifically called what type of memory? And they're oftentimes, they're very clear, but sometimes faulty. Brain waves during REM sleep most closely resemble what type of brain waves? Chemicals that relay signals across the synapse. So sending from one, receiving on this one, and the synapse is that little gap between the two. What is the chemical? What do we call the chemical that actually does that signal for you? The goals of psychology do not include, and hopefully as I just said goals of psychology, you should have just heard A, B, C, D, the four goals of psychology. If not, you need to do a little bit of reviewing because that's going to be big and it's going to keep popping its head up throughout the rest of the semester. The process by which receptor cells detect stimuli is called blank. So the process by which we receive, the process by which my eyes take in light waves, the process by which your ears are hearing my voice talking to you through the internet. It's called what? The stimulus intensity that is detected half the time on average is called the blank threshold. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a hint here, the minimum amount of stimulus needed. Okay. Oops, skipped over. The temporal lobe is blank, the blank lobe. So where is it in reference to what other lobe in the brain? The textbook talks about Clive Wearing, and I talked about Clive Wearing quite a bit. I have a documentary that I normally show of Clive because we got a little bit behind. I didn't show that one, but Clive is the guy who lives in basically his sensory and a little bit of his short-term memory because he had that staph infection and he has something called Anterograde Amnesia. What is being impacted here? Okay, and don't overthink this one because obviously all parts of the memory process are going to be impacted. Because let me just give you a theoretical example. If I don't, remember the computer analogy. If I don't encode, if I don't type something in, there's nothing for me to store and nothing for me to go back and retrieve. So obviously encoding will impact the storage because it didn't happen. But which of these memory processes for Clive is the starting point? What is the point of his impairment? Watson and Rayner, who did they mess up? Which factor is not one of the three general memory processes? So which one of those, like that old, one of these things are doing their own thing, which one of these don't fit? Which statement is most accurately describing the effect of caffeine and other stimulants? For most people. Not for everybody, because we know caffeine, you can build a tolerance and all that fun stuff, but for most people. The goal of psychology is the goals of psychology, so A, B, C, D, if you don't have them memorized, retrieval or recall, the type of memory you're going to use here is recognition. So you should be able to recognize which one. Psychologists interested in finding out why identical twins have different personalities. Which of the goals are they looking at? And again, if I scroll back up to number 27, which of the goals, and then all my options down here are goals, you're welcome. The question, what is happening, refers to, again, look at all these. Look there. You're welcome. Number 30, psychologists who give potential employees tests to determine what type of job they would be good at would be looking at the goal of blank. Why was the perspective followed by Wilhelm Wundt and his followers called structuralism? Which early school of psychology proposed that consciousness was made up of two types of elements, sensations and thoughts? Who was the early proponent of functionalism? It was this individual and his famous brother, Bartels. A couple of you are chuckling about that. Most of you think I've just gone insane, but someday some of these jokes will make sense. If an individual believed that why people think and feel what they do is more important than how they think, they'd be a proponent of what? The type of psychologist, the type of early psychologist who believed that the sum is more, or the whole is more than the sum of its parts, were called what type of psychologist? The belief that the unconscious mind has an influence on one's behavior. Unconscious? The only way I can make it more easy if I were to say cocaine. Freud stressed the importance of, and you'll notice here, no cocaine. But what age did Freud really stress? Which approach did Freud develop? Watson, remember Watson and Rayner, Little Albert. I believe that psychology should involve the study of the school of behaviorism. Look back 39, Watson believed that psychology should involve the study of blank. And then in 40, we talk about behaviorism. The school of behaviorism attempted to explain behavior by studying blank. Psychodynamic perspective was based on, which one of these guys is the biggest psycho? Is it Watson? Is it Gestalt? Was Gestalt even a name? Cognitive neuroscientists can examine the brain with blank and blank. Oh, this keeps moving too fast. The emerging field of brain imagery in cognitive neuroscience has developed methods such as MRI to examine blank. Which of the following statements is correct? What is one similarity shared between clinical psychologists and psychiatrists? For some reason, this question has always been one of my favorites. I think it's just the spelling of Dr. Braun's. Not sure why, but this is always on my midterm. It always has been for about 10 years. Dr. Braun's has been treating a child with ADHD. She decides to write a prescription for Ritalin. Given this information, Dr. Braun's is on a television talk show. An actor describes symptoms of anxiety that he's been experiencing. He reports the severity of the symptoms has decreased since he's been taking a drug prescribed by his therapist back in Hollywood. You conclude the actor's therapist is probably systematically collecting data in real-world environments is the essence of what descriptive method? Which research method involves watching behaviors as they occur without intervening? You overhear a psychology student preparing for a test. They note that one of their research methods often fails to generalize. Which method is most likely the topic of their discussion? Remember, this one's a little bit wordy. So remember, failure to generalize means your study won't be applicable except for the very small population to which your research is being done. So an example of this that I used in class was if somebody is researching they're researching the sleeping patterns of serial killers, that's not really going to be applicable to all people because it's such a small population and it's such a unique population. So that would be a failure to generalize. So think about that. A blank is a measure of how strongly two variables are related to one another. We did not necessarily go over this. We didn't go over the calculation, so I'm just going to give you this one. Which of the following correlation coefficient represents the strongest relationship between two variables? The correct answer is negative 0.75. The reason for that is strength of correlation goes from 0. Okay, so we have 0, and then it goes all the way up to 1 or negative 1, which is basically 100% or negative 100%, and it goes out until we hit 1.0 over here, or a negative 1.0 over here. But think about, it gets bigger as it goes out. So a 1 and a negative 1 have the same strength. A 0.5 and a negative 0.5 have the same strength. So if we're just looking at strength, the most area between the two lines would be negative 0.75. Okay? Which of the following statements about correlation or correlation coefficients are true? So I just got done saying it goes from negative 1 to 1, so it can't be this. It might be that these are strong and equally so, because literally I just said that. Correlation coefficients indicate cause and effect. No! Remember, there's 3 types of research we talked about that were correlational research, and 1 type that was cause and effect, because correlation does not equal causation, and correlation of plus 0.89 is strong, negative 0.89 is weak. No. The variable that the experimenter manipulates is called the independent. Oh, it's the independent variable. Sorry, got into test taking mode there for a second. In a laboratory, smokers are asked to drive using a computerized driving simulator. Wow, it's not my day-to-day. The object is to maximize the distance covered. Some of the participants smoke real cigarettes immediately before, and the other ones use fake cigarettes. In the study group, the cigarette without nicotine is what? So remember, we talked through this one during the review. And because they are smokers, giving them something that is different would actually be the experimental group. Okay, so the cigarette without nicotine is the experimental group. Which of the following best illustrates the placebo effect, or placebo, depending on how you want to pronounce your syllables? The placebo effect means. So I really want you to make sure you know that one. Experimenters can justify the use of deception because the function of the blank is to carry information to and from all parts of the body. We want the big idea here. Yes, I know some of these are a part of the big idea, but what is the big idea here? Part of the neuron that literally means branch is what? Specialized cell that makes up the nervous system and receives and sends messages is called, again, big idea. Which part of the neuron is responsible for maintaining the life of the cell? Part of the neuron is attached to the soma, so it's not the soma, and carries messages out. So remember, going out, not coming in. Function of the neuron's axon is to blank. Blank receive messages from other neurons, and blank send messages to other neurons. So boom, go back to your arm. What is this? What is this? What is this? And if I had a hand coming out my shoulder, what would that be? Cell in the human nervous system whose primary function is to provide insulation and structure. Remember, when you're looking at this, there are 2 answers that you may look at and you say, wait a second, we talked about both of these, but one makes the other one, is a component of the other one, and I want to know not the component, but actually the bigger one of the 2. Okay? So one of these makes up the other one, and I want to know which one actually is the insulation. Okay. Term fire, when referring to neural transmission, indicates the neuron. When a neuron fires, it's in a blank fashion. It's no partial firing. All or none, you're welcome, is the principle stating that blank. Chemical found in the synaptic vesicles, which when released has an effect on the next cell. It's called what? We've already had that question before, so it should be relatively easy if you've already looked it up. Action potential causes neurotransmitters to be released into the blank. Which neurotransmitters is associated with sleep, mood, and appetite? And that's it. So, hopefully this helps at least one of you out there. If it doesn't, I guess I just got to take the test again for myself, and I feel pretty confident I would have done okay, but who knows, maybe I would have just bombed it. If you have any specific questions, please contact me. You know the drill. You can email me. You can text me, although email usually has been working out a little bit better this semester for some weird reason. My texts aren't coming through. I'm using Google Voice, and sometimes Google Voice for some reason likes to just dispose of text messages that it doesn't think I need. Google has a weird algorithm. I'm not sure what it is, but maybe it's trying to tell me that I need to stop accepting text messages. I don't know what the problem is, but email me. You can try to text me. Just make sure you have this done by Monday because we're going to start moving on Monday. Okay? So everybody have a great weekend after you get your test done, and I will see you next week.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.